Okay, this video is to prepare you for a quiz on plant transport, growth, reproduction, and nutrition. So there's a picture of a plant with some purple stuff. Alright, so let's go through some questions. I'm going to try to go quickly so you get a bunch of them and find some that are helpful for you. That's not one of them. Hold on. Okay, number 96. Which of the following flower parts develops into a fruit? Stigma, style, ovule, ovary, or receptacle. All right, so let me show you a picture of the female structures of a plant. All right, so here's one with a little bit of information for you. The stigma, which receives the pollen, the style, which is the tube, the ovary, the whole thing, which contains the ovules, which are the reproductive cell, which will become the seed when fertilized by pollen. Okay, and so the ovule is the egg, and the ovary contains the ovules, and then the style and the stigma. So that's the female part. So if we look back at the question, which of the following flower parts develop into a fruit? The answer is D, the ovary. Vascular plant tissue includes all of the following cell types except vessel elements, sieve cells, tracheids, companion cells, or cambium cells. So, what do you think? Alright, so before I tell you the answer, let's just think through of what these things are. Right, so vessel elements and tracheids belong to what? Okay, good, the xylem. Sieve cells and companion cells belong to what? Phloem. So what's a cambium cell? I don't know. So that's the one. That's the answer. Okay? So here we go. Alright, so you might want to pause and jot these down because the next couple questions are going to be, these will be the answers. Okay, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, tracheids, and sieve cells. Okay. A long, thin, tapered cells with lignified cell walls that function and support and permit water to flow through. What do you think that is? All right, we just talked about this. We went over this today in class. All right, so we can still visualize these here. So the answer, okay, is going to be D, tracheids. Okay, so if we're talking about water, we're talking about cells or cells that are involved in xylem, and the tracheids are those more primitive, tapered, lignified cells. And lignified, remember, means wood, woody. Number 9, cells with unevenly thickened primary walls that support still elongating parts of the plant. All right. The answer, all right, pause if you don't want to hear the answer yet. The answer is B. So the answer is collenchyma. So if these are completely stumping you, please spend a little bit of time knowing the difference between these. Okay, and these are two cells that have to do with specific functions. So okay. Which of the following is not a characteristic of parenchyma cells? Thin primary walls, flexible primary walls, lack of specialization, lack of secondary walls, or little metabolism and synthesis. All right, pause if you don't want to hear the answer. The answer is E. Okay. So let's take a look at the different cells for a second in an image. Alright, so here's a little chart. I would recommend pausing and writing down some of these details to help you remember the differences, especially to know the parts of the plan and that we're typically talking about. I think it will help you to be able to understand how these play out in a plant. So pause here and copy these down, or what you see is important. I see the big importance being the location and function. All right, now we're going to go back to questions. Number 15. One important difference between the anatomy of roots and the anatomy of leaves is that only leaves have phloem and only roots have xylem. The cells of roots have cell walls and leaf cells do not. A waxy cuticle covers leaves but is absent in roots. Vascular tissue is found in roots but is absent from leaves. And leaves have an epidermal tissue but roots do not. So pause before I give you the answer and explanation. And the answer is C. A waxy cuticle covers leaves but is absent in roots. So we're talking about what's different about leaves and roots. So think about what's different about the function of leaves and roots. Leaves are there to do photosynthesis and produce sugars, and the roots are there to pull in water from the soil. So xylem and phloem are throughout the plant. Plant cells, all these plant cells have cell walls. Obviously waxy, they don't have. Okay, waxy cover is only in leaves but absent in roots. Why? Well, leaves have a waxy covering to sort of prevent excessive evaporation and to protect the leaves. And that's not really necessary in roots because they're not exposed to the air. Vascular tissue is found in roots but is absent from leaves. Well, that's not true. We've got to have xylem and phloem in both roots and leaves. Leaves have epidermal tissue but roots do not. They both have epidermal tissue. Alright, so we're going to have a bunch of questions related to the parts of a growing root. So the parts of a growing root are root cap, zone of elongation, zone of cell division, zone of cell maturation, and the apical meristem. So let's look at a picture of this. Alright, so here's an image of a growing root to remind you of how they grow. I can't quite fit it all in there. You are responsible for being able to know the parts here. So if you don't have a picture of this or a handle on this anatomy, I would pause right here to copy it down and become more familiar with it. Alright, so you have root hairs, of course. The zone of maturation is here. The zone of elongation is here. And the zone of cell division is in here. And then you have your meristem, the cortex, and then in the middle, the vascular cylinder. So this is a drawing of it. And this is a real picture. And the colors are showing you the type of tissue. So cortex is ground tissue. Cylinder is vascular. And then the pale blue is the dermal around the outside. I hope that's helpful. So let's see if we can answer the questions now then. Which of the following is the correct sequence from the growing tips of the root upward? And we're using these. So pause for a second and figure it out because Roman numerals tend to confuse you guys. So pause and take a look at it. Okay, the answer is E. So we're talking about the sequence being root cap, apical meristem, zone of cell division, zone of elongation, and zone of cell maturation. So, go back here. Okay, if you look, we're obviously looking at the root here. You have the apical meristem, the zone of cell division, zone of elongation, and the zone of maturation. Okay, sorry, you couldn't see that there, but there's the root cap. Okay, so first root cap, then apical meristem. I didn't have the picture right there. Root cap, then apical meristem, then the zone of cell division, then zone of elongation, then zone of maturation. So if I have not emphasized enough that you need to know this anatomy and know that in order, well, there you go. I'm telling you for sure. That's the advantage of watching these. Okay. Okay, number 30. Pores on the leaf surface that function in gas exchange are called hairs, xylem cells, phloem cells, stomata, or sclerids. Pause and then we'll talk about it. Okay, the answer, of course, is stomata. Okay, that's the site of gas exchange. Remember too that the cells around the stomata are called guard cells, and this controls the gas exchange and plays a role in transpiration as well. Okay, number 80. Which of the following is a correct statement about sugar movement in phloem? Diffusion can account for the observed rates of transport. Movement can occur both upward and downward in the plant. Sugar is translocated from sinks to sources. Only phloem cells with nuclei can perform sugar movement, and sugar transport does not require energy. So pause right here to take a look at what you think the answer is. Okay, the answer is B. Movement can occur both upward and downward. And of course, because we need sugar everywhere in a plant, it's going to move everywhere it needs to be via the phloem. I'm trying to explain why the rest is wrong. The others are just wrong. Alright, phloem cells, the phloem cells without nuclei are the ones that perform sugar movement. Sugar transport indeed does require energy. It's active transport. And it's from source to sink. And it's not diffusion because it's active transport. Okay. Keeping in mind the source to sink thing, let's do this and I'll tell you what's missing here. I have to set the size of the box right in the beginning and then I can't change it. So that's why sometimes things are cut off. Phloem transport is described as being from source to sink. Which of the following would most accurately complete this statement about phloem transport as applied to most plants in the late spring? Phloem transports blank from the blank source to the blank sink. Okay, so we have amino acids, root, mycorrhizae, sugars, leaf, apical meristem, nucleic acids, flower, root, proteins, root, leaf, and then sugars, stem, root. Okay, so let's start with what phloem transports. Phloem transports sugars. So we can automatically rule out the amino acids and nucleic acids and proteins. Okay, and where are we getting those sugars from? Okay, where are we forming sugars? Well, through photosynthesis. And where does that occur? In the leaf. Okay, so we already know it's B, but just to finish it out, okay, so if the source is the leaf, where is the sink? All right, the sink is the apical meristem on the bottom of the root, okay, which can become a part of how the tissue grows. Phloem transport of sucrose can be described as going from source to sink. Which of the following would not normally function as a sink? Okay, growing leaf, growing root, storage organ in summer, mature leaf, or root or shoot tip. So pause and then think of the answer. Okay, and the answer is D, the mature leaf. So we are going to transport sucrose to growing areas that are going to require some energy, okay, not a mature leaf that's already there. Okay, number 103. If an African violet has chlorosis, which of the following elements might be a useful addition to the soil? Chlorine, molybdenum, which I can never say right, copper, iodine, and magnesium. Pause right here and then decide. All right, we only talked about chlorosis in regards to one particular element. And that element is, here's the answer, okay, E, magnesium. Okay, so magnesium is crucial for the chlorophyll, and if it's not working, we're going to have kind of a yellowish plant, which is chlorosis. Okay, so because we didn't use the book extensively, I couldn't really find any other questions that were great for right now. I'll try to make a more detailed review question type review for your test that'll be on Monday. So here's just some things I would think about looking over. Besides, the pictures in the book are very good for this unit. We use them a lot, so that would help you. But for plant growth, look over the meristem, elongation, etc. Be able to understand how growth occurs and the orientation on the root and on the stem, where does mitosis occur, etc. Reproduction, how does it happen? The male parts, the female parts, the gametes, avoiding self-fertilization, and the role of meiosis in reproduction. And by that I mean that meiosis is involved with creating unique individuals. Transport, symplastic and apoplastic Casparian strip. So that picture to understand what's going on there. Also that guard cells are controlling the stomata, and how are transpiration and photosynthesis balanced. Alright, so that's a tricky one to find out. Plant anatomy, understand the flower, the shoots and roots. And for nutrition, what do plants need and how do they get it? How is the nitrogen cycle involved in plants? So I hope this helps you a little bit. At least it's sweet and short. Good luck on your quiz. If you have questions, come in with them to class and I can answer them. Okay, but if we have no questions, I can't help you and we'll just take our quiz. All right, have a good night. Study hard.